Hello, awesome Patreon subscribers. Welcome to the first official Patreon Q&A. This one's going to be really laid back just because I haven't really finalized a lot, but I figure I'll just start off by giving a quick little update and just elaborate a tiny bit more about what I talked about on the podcast. So basically, everything's still going to be a little bit nuts until June, but no one's getting charged for May. So this is more of just like a laid-back, chill Q&A session where I'm going to just be responding to everybody who posted in the comments of last week's Patreon video. For this week, same thing. Any questions or comments about anything I talked about this week, just post down below in Patreon. And as I said in the roundup, as across the board on YouTube, I'm leaving comments on just so people could, basically just do whatever they felt like, except for these videos. I feel good about the fact that I want to make this really Patreon only. So comments disabled on YouTube, everybody comment here only, and maybe I'll release this to the public eventually. But at least for now, this is really just centered around Patreon subscribers. And pretty much anything we want to talk about. So, like I said, very laid back. I'm going to try to get back to, I'm not going to try to, I will get back to a real schedule by June. So I'm not sure if this is going to be every Thursday, every Friday or Saturday. I'm not really sure what days I'll be putting these out on. But by June, it'll be a weekly set Patreon Q&A date, and it'll have, I don't want to say formal, because nothing about me is formal, but it'll have a set schedule that people could expect to go by. So I'm just going to grab myself a Hoa garden and just kind of relax, go through some of the questions, and then see if there's anything else to add at the end. So here we go, the first Patreon Q&A. I just loaded up the page from last week, and I'm just going to go through and pick out any comments that I think I might be able to respond to. The first is from Sefar. Hey, I'm back, and I still can't pronounce anything. Sorry. But they were talking about maybe it comes down to the Patreon supporters filtering out the best YouTube questions each week. So, two things on that. First of all, cool thought, but I would never ever ask anybody to, go do that work for me. I'm never going to say, go filter out my comments for me. But I love the idea behind it, in that anybody that has any questions that you see anywhere else that you want the answer to, just post down here. So maybe you happen to be scrolling through one of the YouTube comments, or maybe you're just, maybe you just have something you want to know the answer to. Just don't feel like it needs to be confined to something we talked about in the weekly roundup or something from last week's Q&A. This is just an open forum of absolutely anything you guys want me to try to answer for you. And remember the most important part, in that while I'm definitely not the smartest kid, I'm lucky enough to be friends with a lot of people that are some of the smartest people I know. So maybe this is a great way of just continuing my history of being a middleman for everybody. But cool idea, but definitely want to drive the point home that just ask anything you feel like, and if I feel like I have a decent enough answer to it, I'll answer next week. Cunningham posted in regards to a future potential forum, and he said he's skeptical, not that he wouldn't love it, but there are already so many forums that are already filled with toxicity, and he worries that trying to police it might be more hassle than it's worth. So I agree with you 100%, but that's actually the exact reason, well, one of the reasons why I had to cancel the Indiegogo, is that I knew if I wouldn't have enough time to really just sit there and make it as best of a place as I could, then I knew it wouldn't work. And if I do, or not really if, I'm 99.9% sure this is going to happen this year, but when the forum does open up, it's going to be my main focus to make sure that I get a bunch of moderators that have the same mentality that a lot of us do, in that, if you want to act like an idiot, go somewhere else. If you want to come to a place where you can get helpful information, help other people, and have conversations about some of the same stuff that you like, then you're welcome. So I feel like while you're right in that at first it's going to be a lot of work, I think as long as I get enough people on board that share the same thought of we need to create an open tech forum and an open tech wiki, which I'm still working on, that everybody feels like they could just show up and have a conversation. And as long as you're polite, at worst you might get transferred to a more relevant forum or a more relevant thread than the one you posted in. But unless people are rude or mean, everybody's welcome and everybody gets help. So I agree with you 100%, but I still truly believe that this is a possibility as long as I get people that on board with me that are able to help and share the same vision. So if you're one of those people, cool. If not, don't worry about it. I know a lot of people that love the idea of that but want nothing to do with the moderation. That's totally fine. But cool comment, and you know, a couple of months, hopefully I'll be able to get the ball rolling on the new website stuff. So, fingers crossed. The girl G33K, the girl gamer, no, Danielle. She posts her name on Twitter, so I'm not outing somebody's real name here. It's already public, but Danielle had a very cool idea that I definitely wanted to mention. She said what I could do for the Q&A stuff is initially release the Q&As on Patreon only each week, and then release them to YouTube at the beginning of next month. So I think that's a freaking awesome idea, and I just have to figure out exactly how I'm going to do that. But definitely taking your suggestion in that exclusive release tier only first. Still no comments on that one YouTube video, just the Q&As. Everything else is still on. And then I think a month is probably a good idea, but then release those publicly a month later. And that way, you know, people that don't want to or don't or can't join the Patreon for whatever reason, at least they could still get the content eventually, but we all get to be part of the ones that do it in real time. So awesome suggestion. I would have never thought of that. Thank you very much. Brian Harmon asked a good question about, do you lose any signal quality when linking together two switches? And the truth is, with analog equipment, every single thing that you add into the chain and every extra length of cable you have will definitely degrade the signal. The question is, will you notice? So for things like if you're designing a product and you need to do comparison shots, or if you're, or if you're capturing video for a very special thing that you're doing, like a YouTube video or a how-to guide or something, some of the stuff that I do and some of the other YouTubers do where quality really matters, then I would skip all of it and go directly into whatever you're going into. But if you're just talking about actually playing games and just enjoying consoles, I think as long as you're using good shielded cables and you keep the cables as short as possible, then you should be fine. So I guess a good scenario is I'd linked together a couple switches a few years ago. I had an automatic 16-port switch. I had like a IKEA shelf with a bunch of consoles in it, and it was all automatic. You just turn on the console and it appears. And I definitely heard a bit of an audio buzz doing it that way. Not loud, not deafening, it wouldn't like rumble with a subwoofer, but it wasn't there going direct into the speakers. And sometimes there was some strange video glitches where maybe there's a little bit of occasional horizontal lines going across or something, but not bad, not like lines going across the screen, but you might see a little flicker every now and then. And because that was designed for something that I used when I was playing, I was totally okay with it, just because it's like, yeah, I wish everything was perfect all the time, but the trade-off is anytime I want to play a game, I just walk up, press a button, and it's on. So the cheesy but true answer is, the maximum length you recommend for maximum signal is as short as it could be in your setup. I'm moving soon, and I'm going to have a new setup in the new place. I'm still in Manhattan, so I'm essentially still living in a walk-in closet, so it's not going to be an extravagant setup, but I think it's going to be a very fun way of showing people how you could get a happy medium. So what are the great ways to get the best signal quality while it's still realistic? And I will have two switches plugged into each other in this scenario as well, actually. So I'll have an in-depth video on that after maybe a couple weeks after I move. But I guess just the short answer to your question is, as long as you're using good equipment, you shouldn't see signal degradation when using multiple switches, good switches. And definitely spend the money on higher quality cables if you're going. The longer you go, the more it matters. So the perfect example for that too is the HD RetroVision cables. And no, I'm not just shamelessly plugging my friend's stuff. They really are that good, but their cables are huge and thick and very well shielded. But the little pigtail that goes from Genesis 1 to Genesis 2 only has outer shielding, because when it's this long, you don't actually need any shielding. So the longer the cable run, the more you want to make sure that it's well shielded and good thick cables. And for tiny little runs, as long as it's a good quality cable, you don't need to go nuts. So hopefully that'll point you in the right direction and at least put your mind at ease about linking together two cross points. And I'll have a video out soon showing what I did that hopefully will kind of point more people in the right direction for that happy balance between obsessive perfection and, not having to spend 15 minutes setting up your stuff every time you want to play a game. Cameron McGowan had a very cool idea, and this links into one of the bigger picture ideas I've been talking about. But he said he wants a way to suggest, for Patreons to suggest cool stuff to be part of the Retro Roundup, which I love, and I get a lot of those emails, and I appreciate them so much. I think for now, because I've already dedicated time and I will absolutely be reading these Q&A things, if somebody posts something awesome in the Q&As, I'll still respond here, but I'll also talk about it in the roundup. So for the short term, that's definitely the best way if you have something really cool that you want to make sure other people get to learn about. Post it here, and then I'll share it both on the Q&As and on the weekly roundup. But that's actually another thing I'm working on in the future. I want ways for people to submit ideas or guides or whatever else you got that could be hosted for free on other places. And, whenever I've talked about this in the past, I don't mean to rant here, I'll make it quick, but people always mention, like, well, can't you just do that on Reddit? That's not what this is about. This is about making sure it's a community of people that actually care what we're talking about, and no, I don't want any negativity. I mean, when I say negativity, if something goes wrong, that's fine, but no malicious posts and stuff. So great idea. For now, just post it in the Q&As, and I'll make sure to share that with the world if it's something that should be. And in the future, I'm working on something where everybody could submit ideas, tips, whatever else, and even full guides, full reviews if you have one, and whatever it is, just to be able to share content with everybody else. And I'm going to try to get this done and quickly and fairly for everybody. But very cool idea, and that's something I'm working on, and it means a lot to me. So hopefully by the end of summer I'll have something like that up. Jason D asked, what's the status of the hybrid scan lines on the open source scan converter? Have I tried them, and will they be incorporated into a future firmware? So, bad news. While I've been absolutely keeping in touch with all of the amazing people in the community and trying to keep my finger on the pulse, if you will, I kind of have been ignoring the OSSC, but for all the good reasons. It's a product that's mature at this point, that I love, that I feel like if you have the extra cash, every retro gamer should definitely own one. But I haven't been paying as much attention to it because it's just already awesome. So that's a great question, and I'll talk to Marcus soon about that. And hopefully I could have Marcus back on. I really enjoyed the last time I talked to him, and it went a little slow. But it was 100% my fault. I had screwed up the time zones, and I don't know. I don't want to bore everybody with that story again, but it's a great question, and I will try to get Marcus back on soon. And I'll see what else is in store for the open source scan converter. But my recommendation has not changed. I still love that thing. And I think for anybody that doesn't mind tinkering or owns a TV that knows is already compatible with it, hands down, infinitely better solution than the FrameMeister. But just either be prepared to tinker or make sure that your exact model TV is one that's compatible with the OSSC and all the consoles. But sorry I don't have a better answer. Next, James Evans Turner seems to have a problem with my nomenclature and using the word ROM cart as opposed to flash cart. Well, he's actually completely right. It is a flash cart. But the reason I always use the word ROM cart is because for a long time, when I heard the words flash cart, I was hearing about a device that could flash one game at a time, or sometimes two or three, but basically a memory device that did not have as much space, and you certainly couldn't just throw an SD card into it. So a proper way to say it would probably be an SD flash cart. I don't know why ROM cart just stuck for me, so you're actually right, and I was just teasing. But I do need to start working on things like that, because I found that a lot of the little things sometimes come back to bite me. Like when I talk about lag, I realize that people are misinterpreting what I mean. I'm actually talking about added display lag over a CRT. There's a whole video about that coming soon, I promise. But thanks for reminding me of that, because at the very least, if nothing else, I could change the page on my site to say ROM cart /flash cart / SD flash card reader, whatever, just to kind of get people used to it. But I'm still going to call them ROM cards because, fuck it, I already call them that. Carlo de la Cruz was asking about multi-sync CRT monitors, and I got some bad news for you, but those are getting to be even more rare than any other type of RGB monitor. Things like the NEC XM29 Plus, some of the BVMs that support 480p, and you even mentioned the PVM 20L5, they're all starting to go way, way up in price because they're some of the few devices that could actually support 240p, 480i, and 480p or above. There's some Ikagamis as well and a few others. And if you're really looking for one monitor, one to accept the whole spectrum, it's going to be really hard to find, and you're going to spend a lot of money, unfortunately. I think a lot of people, Jose from iFix Arcade, iFix Retro, one of the things he does is he has a gorgeous PC monitor that's 480p and up. But I mean, this thing is ridiculously high quality. I believe it's a Samsung, and I think it's a 20-inch Samsung, and he uses that for 480p, and then he has another BVM that's only 240p 480i, and they're both perfect for what they do. I am lucky enough to still have that BVM that supports all the resolutions pretty much, and so it's really just about how much money you want to spend, how much space you have, and how patient you are to find all this stuff. But I mean, unfortunately, the best advice I can give you is take what you could get and what you could afford at the moment, and then just keep your hopes up to find some of the other ones. I think some of the biggest problems with like the XM29s and the Mitsubishi Megaviews is that not many people know how to work on them, and there's like 1,000 caps or something. So it's not like a BVM where you could say, okay, well, these are the top 10 capacitors that are dead, or that die on most of these, and start by replacing those. You'd have to just pick one board at a time and say, all right, I'll start with the video board, and here's 200 capacitors, and all right, now I'll do the power board. And so while you could find some of those XM29s for $600-700, it's hours of work. And I'm not trying to discourage that. If you're the type of person that, loves taking a frame of a classic car and rebuilding it from scratch, because that's essentially what you'd be doing with this monitor, then you might love this project. But I would really just keep your expectations low for that. Sorry to be a bummer on that one. And you also asked about the Garo. If you hook up a gun con to the device's component Luma port, would it properly translate on the PC CRT if it were to accept 15 kilohertz? So 2 answers. Most PC CRTs will never accept 15 kilohertz, but with most light guns, in that scenario where you have a composite video pin where you just need to plug it into the gun, it's actually just reading sync. So you could use composite video, you could use Luma, or you could use that pin on component video, and it would work. So I hope that's decent answers to all your questions. I'm sorry to be such a bummer about the multi-sync stuff. I want realistic expectations. So hopefully you'll be lucky enough to find something like an XM29 that's in good condition that could handle all the resolutions, but you might be stuck buying a really nice PC, or an old PC CRT that's 480p and an RGB monitor. Anapan sent a message requesting comparison shots of arcade monitors versus RGB monitors and maybe a few others. And that is absolutely something I'm going to be working on, but that's far away. That's probably towards the end of the year, because while I do like all of the things that you asked about, to do this right, I really need just very, very high quality camera gear. I need macro lenses on a high quality DSLR or mirrorless camera. I need a 4K 60 professional grade video camera for the video shots. And this is right at the end of my skill set when it comes to this, so I'm going to have to enlist friends to help, and I have never and probably won't for the foreseeable future be able to afford some of the equipment I need to do these tests, so I need to rent, borrow, or have people contribute. So it's a good question, but it's something that's far away. and I don't mean to pick on you, man. I'm just teasing, but the way you worded the question, you worded it in the same way. You'd say, "Hey, man, I got this new ROM. Does this work on your SD to SNES?" As if it's like a 2-second thing. Like, yeah, no problem. I'll just throw it in and send it. I hope you realize that what you're asking is like a week's worth of work. And probably just as much time in post as it would actually take to set up these shots and get it, because macro close-up shots of CRTs is not an easy thing to capture. And even if I tried to just do a quick thing with my DSLR, it's still a ton of setup, and I don't even own a Wells Gardner arcade monitor. I sold off a lot of the equipment I already had, so don't mean to tease you on that one, but that was a very tall order and a very short email. But it's actually a great request and something I will totally get to, but not soon, unfortunately. Colin Kenny was asking about a comment I'd made where I kind of alluded to the fact that I didn't think the Super NT was going to be open to more cores. And the truth is that I have zero inside info. I have not been in contact with anybody at all from Analog or anybody on the inn. I just, for a company that has spent years making ridiculously expensive stuff that's really just designed for the people that could afford it, and now they made a product that works perfectly and it's way more affordable. And there's no criticism in that. I don't take a look at that and go, well, I could cut, $100 out of this. And, that is kind of I don't want to say educated opinion, but sort of, because I did work in computer hardware manufacturing for like 6 years. So I can take a look at that thing and go, it is efficient in every way. So they're obviously striving to make more consumer-grade products. So having a $500 thing after shipping, like the the Analog NT Mini that supports a bunch of cores, is great, and I love it, and I will never sell mine. But I could just imagine that they're going to try to pump out a bunch more of these cheaper ones utilizing those same cores. That is a guess. It is not inside information at all. It's just what I would do if I ran that company. I'd actually make a few changes, but that's certainly one of the things I would do. But either way, the Super NT is cheap enough where it's still a premium product, but it's affordable there, where even if you're tight on money, you could buy one of those cheap Hyperkin ones just for the short term and then save up for a year and get this and enjoy pretty much perfection. So that's just my speculation. Please, just take it as such. But the good question, and I really hope a lot more comes out of that company, because there's such potential to do amazing things, and they've been very quiet. So we'll see, but I genuinely wish them the best of luck. Especially Kevin and Ernest, because they've done some great things. So that pretty much is it for the first Patreon Q&A. Please keep the questions coming. It's easier if you post them in this video as opposed to direct messages or anything like that, but I'll try to keep up with everything. I'm really sorry if I missed anybody's or if I skipped over one. I just, these next few weeks are still a little bit crazy. Positive crazy, but still a little crazy. I'm just trying to catch up and get back into the swing of things. But thank you so much for participating. Please keep the questions coming. Any suggestions you have or anything like that, as always, I'm completely open to anything. And just thank you so much for all your support. Hopefully I'll plan like a live Q&A soon, and I'm definitely sticking to one of these a week. I don't know what day of the week I'll put them out for the short term. But like I said earlier, by the end of May, early June, we'll have a solid plan for all this stuff. So thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you next week.